Hi, I'm Michelle Fitzgerald with the Senzar Learning Center, and today I want to share with you a little story about communicating with trees and with nature spirits. And I'm sharing this today to pique your interest in the type of experiences that are available to you if you'll learn a little more about how to open the doors to the unseen realms. This story takes place just this weekend. I had just this amazing experience at one of my favorite places near Sedona called Page Springs. And there is a what's called an important bird area out in this zone. And a lot of the terrain is much different than in most parts of Sedona. It's very, very green. There's a lot of underground springs, Page Springs. And so things grow very easily there. And there's many varieties of trees and plants and all kinds of different animals and birds. It's very beautiful. But I had a particular agenda this particular weekend. I was going out to do some just cataloging of the different types of tree species in the area because I'm about to do a number of training programs, live training programs, in-person training programs, where I introduce people to some of the physical healing and metaphysical healing and magical properties of trees. And I have visited this area, it's called Bubbling Ponds, many, many times. I mean, hundreds of times, literally. And I communicate with many trees out in the area, but I haven't paid much attention to the type of trees that I'm talking to. You know, the cottonwood really stand out, and the big giant sycamore really stand out. But there's lots of other trees out there, and I just needed to really make myself aware of what are the other types of trees out there. I've pretty much been exclusively communicating with cottonwoods and sycamore, and I need to figure out who else is out here and start establishing some relationships. So anyway, I arrived and I started on the trail, and the first thing I came to was a tree that it was obviously not a cottonwood or a sycamore. And I thought, oh, what kind of tree is this? And it's a desert willow. And I introduced myself to to this being, and got permission to enter his space. It had a kind of male energy to it. Entered the tree space and introduced myself and established a communication link. And anyway, it's just a delightful, wonderful, loving spirit that is the intelligence of this giant old desert willow tree. And I decided, hey, since I'm here, I think I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of communicating with this tree and see if this tree will help me do a centering in spirit tuning exercise, which I talked about in the Magical Healing Powers of Tree seminars that I did this past Friday. But the tree was more than willing to help me with that, and I did a centering, and it took, not long, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I was just in this blissful, almost like spacey state. I was so tuned to spirit, so merged with nature in that moment that I said thank you very much, and I headed on my way to actually accomplish the agenda that I had for the day. And I head down the trail, and I come to a favorite part of the area for me is this old mesquite grove, and I've walked through it many, many times, and sometimes I stop and just enjoy the silence in the grove. It's very, very quiet there. But today, as I was walking through, I hadn't intended on stopping because I knew that the trees there were mesquite trees, and I was really on a mission to catalog different types of trees. But as I was walking through the grove, I get this tug, this heart tug, and I turn to my right, and I realize it's coming from a really old, really big mesquite tree. So I stop, and I said, hello. And the tree was interested in communicating with me. So I stopped, and I just went into a kind of a heart link with the tree. And I instantly got a message, an intuitive message, that I needed to do what's called a star tuning with this tree. Now, this isn't something for me. This is something that would be for the tree and for the area. I've done this many times with humans, but I haven't done it very frequently with trees. What basically the process is, I am able to communicate with star intelligences, and I can do this type of process where I can tune another being to actually communicate with some of those same star intelligences. And I got the message that I was supposed to do this for this tree. So I stopped and I asked the tree, I said, do you understand the message that I'm getting? And the tree understood. And I said, are you receptive to this? Do you want to participate in this? And are you able to withstand this? Because this process can actually be kind of hard on the form, whether that form is the physical form, whether that form is a human being or a tree. And the tree said that it kind of had a male feeling to it. He said that he was receptive and he was willing to do it and wanted to do it. And the importance of doing this when I cannot command this on autopilot. Sometimes I just get the tug that I need to do it with a person or something else, and I do it if that something else gives me permission to do it. But it's not something I can just dictate. I just can't go up to a person and say, I'm gonna do this with you. You know, I have to get a message that it's an appropriate time to do it and the person is appropriately prepared for this particular thing to happen. Anyway, long story short, I said, okay, great, let's do the tuning. And I started this process. It involves me moving my body in certain ways. There's not a particular formula. I just know instantly as soon as I start how to do it. I don't know how I know how to do it. I just know how to do it, and it always works out. So I started the process, and as I was doing this, and I'm still in my blissful state from having my tune-up with the desert willow tree, but I start this process, and I'm turned one way, and I see out of the corner of my eye, I happen to glance out of the corner of my right eye, and I see this little being there, just in the background, behind another smaller mesquite tree, looked like a little child, kind of a white light being that looked like a little girl. And I couldn't see her form really specifically, all the detail, but it looked like a little child. And I stopped. I just stopped the whole process, and I said, hello, who are you? And it had a very feminine feeling to it, this particular spirit. And she kind of looked around and just looked at me before responding right away. And I said, I'm just doing this thing to help the grove and to help the tree here. Who are you? And she proceeded to tell me that she was a keeper of the mesquites. The keeper of the mesquites are kind of like, some of you have heard my story about the oak tree spirits that I met in Ireland years ago. I tell that whole story in the program, the video entitled Who's Who at Your Garden Party. And that is just a wonderful movie to tears video. The story of these oak trees is just incredible. And if you ever have time, go in. It's in the video vault, Censar Video Vault on my website, and go in and watch that particular video. But the oak tree spirits, it's not the intelligence of an oak tree. Like when I was doing the star tuning with the mesquite tree, I'm actually communicating directly with the intelligence of the tree. You can consider it the soul essence of the tree. But these spirits, like the oak tree spirits, and this mesquite spirit, these keepers of the oaks or keepers of the mesquite, they aren't the trees themselves. They're a type of intelligence that helps the trees. They're the top helpers, kind of in the pecking order of beings that help the different tree species. These are like the top of the list, the top head honchos, called the keepers of the trees. And so this is, every species has these, and this is the keeper of the mesquites. So I just said, well, it's very nice to meet you, and I said, I'm going to continue my process here. And as I did that, I noticed there was another one standing behind another mesquite tree over to my right, and there was another one that kind of had a male presence just ever so slightly behind this little female type spirit. They were all the same types of spirits. I could sense that, and I could see that. But they just kind of stood back and let me do my thing with the big mesquite, which I did, and then I finished. And they had then kind of moved out from behind the trees, and they were standing a little bit closer to me. And I asked them things like how long they had been there, and just got into a little conversation with them. And then I said, I have a list of things that I need to do today, and so I'm going to need to say goodbye. But before I go, is there anything that I can do for you? And the little female-looking one just instantly spoke up, and she said, "Could you bring us an apple?" With great anticipation, "Could you bring us an apple?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, "We've heard of apple trees, and we'd love to see an apple." And I said, sure, I can come back with an apple. I'll come back at my earliest possible convenience and bring an apple so that you can see that. And they were all just excited about that. And I said, so yeah, I'm happy to do that. Now, as all this is going on, as I'm having this communication, another type of being appeared that I am very familiar with. I had never met these mesquite keepers before, but another type of being that I have met and that I talk about in the video, again, another video in the video vault called Fairies, Trolls, and Root Keepers. And in this grove, I've known for a long time, and I've had communication with root keepers. Now, root keepers are like the mesquite keepers, but what they do is they take care of microbes, the little microorganisms that actually tend to the roots of trees and other types of plants, but primarily in this grove, they attend to the roots of the microbes that help the roots of the mesquite trees. And so here they appear, and I said, oh, how are you? And, I hadn't talked to them in a while. How are you doing? Just kind of old friends, just visiting. And I said, I'm on my way. I've got a pretty big agenda today, but is there anything I can do for you guys before I go? And they said, or bring back for you. And they said instantly, one of the head root keepers said, could you bring purple? Could you make purple right now? And I said, what are you talking about? Like you want me to bring like the color purple out here, like a purple stone or what do you mean? And he showed me pictures he just showed me that the whole area, it needed to be covered with purple. And I said, well, and I just had a thought, and I muscle tested, did a little dowsing real quickly. Can I just do this by what I call the blowing technique, where you just conjure the color and blow it out? And I got a big, strong yes that I could do that. And so I just stood there and I started blowing the color purple out of my mouth. And I turned in a circle, and it's like spraying a mist of purple all over the entire grove. Now, when I had arrived earlier, before I had before the mesquite tree had tugged at me, before I saw these other little mesquite keepers, and before the root keepers appeared, I had noticed that my breath, when I entered the grove, had become somewhat constricted, like I was having trouble breathing properly. And when I started blowing the purple, first of all, the instant I started blowing it, I became so filled with joy, it was overwhelming, and I just started bawling. I kept on doing it, but I was just crying profusely. And as I was doing this, just this overwhelming emotion, this sometimes happens to me when there's a shift in energy in a space or in a being in the nature kingdom, or even with people. I'll be their systems or the area will start resonating to the frequency of joy, and I can feel it, and it's in a very positive way overwhelming to my system, and my body response is, and my emotional response is, I just start crying tears of joy. And that's what was happening that day. So I kept on doing it. It's an incredible experience. It's just incredible. And I wish everybody, I could just snap my fingers and make everybody on the planet have this experience immediately. It would take away all the woes of the world if everybody could just immediately have this experience of being in a state of absolute total joy. But the grove filled with joy, and these, I could see the root keepers as the purple was building up. I could instantly start breathing more easily, and they were breathing in the purple that I was creating. And I don't know why they couldn't create it themselves, but they were just breathing in, like we breathe in air, the color purple. And apparently this somehow had gotten just stripped from the area. Something had caused it to just diminish, and they desperately needed the purple. And so they were very thankful, and I stopped the process after it seemed complete, and they were very, very thankful, and I went on my way. Now, with the intention of coming back later, the next day or the day after with apples for these mesquite keepers. So on the path I go, and thinking that I'm going to, get in and out of off the trail in a half an hour or so, but I walk another 5 minutes and I get another heart tug. And I turn to the left, and here is this giant cottonwood, and that's where the tug is coming from, but not the tree itself. Right behind the tree, I can see instantly, I can see there's another little being, another little nature character standing there. And I said, hello. I stopped, hello. Who are you? And he proceeded to instantly start communicating with me. And he told me, he communicated that he was a keeper of pollinators. And I said, you mean like the bees? And he said, oh, no, not like the bees. And he instantly showed me the picture of some different types of beetles, little beetles, and a couple of butterflies. And I said, oh, I forget about those. The butterflies, yes, I know, but I don't often think of beetles as pollinators. But of course, if they crawl on the plants around where the pollen is, of course they would be pollinators. And I said, so, gosh, it's so nice to meet you. And as I'm doing all this, I feel kind of like this tickle on the top of my head. And I look up, and here are these other beings up in the big branches, giant branches of this old cottonwood tree. It's got to be hundreds and hundreds of years old. And look up, and here's these other little characters up there. And I say, who are you? And they're the keepers of the cottonwoods. And they would not come down. I don't know if they just wanted to kind of play with me, just by tickling my head like that. But they didn't want to come down. They didn't want to have a conversation with me. They just wanted to stay up there and observe. And I didn't, try to force it or anything like that. And I said, well, nice meeting you all, but I have got to get on my way. And, before I go, I'm coming back tomorrow. Is there anything that I can bring for you? And the little pollinator character instantly said, could you bring cinnamon? And I said, cinnamon, like cinnamon sticks, and I visualized it in my mind, or powdered cinnamon. And he showed me they wanted the powdered cinnamon, and I said, sure, I'll bring some cinnamon. And that was that, and I went on my way. So the following day, I came back, and I brought a red apple and a green apple. And I brought some cinnamon, and I went right to the grove, to the mesquite grove, to deliver the apples. I set them right near where I had originally seen the little mesquite keepers. And as soon as I set down the apples, they appeared. And you could see them. I could see them go down and just take a whiff of the apples, and they just went into a type of ecstasy, just sniffing the apples. And they were busy with that. They thanked me, and I said, you're welcome, and I'm sure that I'll see you again. And I walked down the trail a little bit further and walked in by the big cottonwood tree. And as soon as I walked in, and I sprinkled a little bit of cinnamon on this old dead log, the base of where a tree had been cut down, that pollinator character showed up again, and he went, ooh, and he was just so excited. And I said, where would you like me to put the rest of this? And he pointed, and he showed me that he wanted me to put it around the base of the cottonwood tree. And so I sprinkled the cinnamon around the back base of the cottonwood tree. And as I did that, a whole number, I didn't count, but a bunch of other characters like this showed up, and they were all just enthralled. They were smelling the cinnamon. They were in this just ecstatic state, like they were, like it was a wonderful drug party or something like that, just breathing in the cinnamon, and they were just so enlivened by it. And they completely forgot about me. They were not paying any attention at all to me at this point. So I just shouted out, okay, bye, see you another time. And I went my way. And that was the end of my day. All of this was so extraordinary. As I was walking out of the mesquite grove, and the mesquite grove on this particular day was in one of the prettiest conditions that I'd ever seen. The mesquite trees hadn't popped their buds out yet. It's still just a little bit too cold, but there's holly all around in certain parts of the grove, all around the bases of the tree, and the holly had popped all these beautiful yellow flowers, and it was just glorious. I was just mesmerized by the beauty of the grove itself. These craggy mesquite trees, these beautiful flowers. And just as I turn around to look and leave the grove in this beautiful scene where I'm surrounded by all these flowers, truly, it's just like some kind of fantasy story. These deer, these white-tailed, bob-tailed deer come just hopping right near me, just come running right through the scene, as though it's like a movie. But it wasn't. It was all really happening. So I share this story with you because I have experiences like this very regularly, and you can have experiences like this too. I have a trip coming up. It's an Ireland field study program. I've done these programs before, but I haven't done anything like what I'm going to do this year. This is a program called A Return to Oneness, and it's really devoted to helping people make the kind of connection with nature that I have. And if I could, the trip, you can read about it. It's all wonderful. We're going to some wonderful places, but I just want you to know that it's not just about visiting trees and learning about the different, medicinal properties of trees, that type of thing. It's not even as simple as communicating just with a tree spirit or learning how to do things like center yourself with the help of a tree. It's about the story that I just told you. It's about having the capacity to do that on a very regular basis because it is so incredible to do it. If I could teach you how to do what I do when I'm out in the forest, when I'm out in the groves, when I'm out wherever with nature, if I could teach that over the internet, I would teach you how to do it over the internet. But I can't teach you over the internet. If you want to learn how to do the type of stuff I do with and the type of interfacing I do with the nature kingdom, you have to get off the internet, off your computers, put your cell phones away, and you need to get out in nature. You need to merge with nature. And it can be incredibly helpful if you go into nature with a guide who already knows how to walk between the worlds. It can help open the doors much, much faster for you to having these types of experiences. So I hope you will read, to take the time at the very least to read about this upcoming trip and consider going with me to Ireland this year or joining me in Ireland this year. It's going to be the most unique, amazingly special program that I've ever done. And I am absolutely sure that it will be just mind-bogglingly and powerful and spiritually uplifting for anybody who participates. So take a look at the material. I hope you enjoyed this story. I'll try to share a few more of these stories in the next couple of months. But for now, I wanted to just share this because it was such a delightful experience this weekend. That's it for today, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye for now.